Stop right there. You're being detained. I need your ID now.
I've identified myself verbally. Am I being detained or am I free to go?
You're detained. Don't play lawyer with me.
Then articulate your reasonable suspicion. Running while black isn't a crime.
Turn around. Hands behind your back.
Officer, if you put hands on me without cause, it's because...
The body camera footage would eventually be viewed by 3 distinct oversight committees: the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security and over 12 million people on YouTube. But on that crisp Tuesday morning in October, Officer Kyle Braden didn't know he was starring in the final act of his law enforcement career. He just thought he was hunting. Marcus Thorne was a creature of habit. At 54 years old, discipline wasn't just a trait. It was a survival mechanism honed by 25 years in intelligence work. Before most of the suburban neighborhood of McLean, Virginia, had even brewed their first pot of coffee, Marcus was already on mile 3 of his daily 5-mile loop. He wore high-visibility running gear, a neon yellow vest over a gray thermal shirt, black running tights, and expensive running shoes. He looked exactly like what he was, a successful professional getting his cardio in before a high-stress workday. But to Officer Kyle Braden, patrolling the quiet streets in a cruiser that smelled of stale energy drinks and leather, Marcus looked like something else. Braden was 27 years old, with 4 years on the force, and a reputation for being proactive, a euphemism his sergeant used for aggressive. Braden saw a black man running through a neighborhood where the median home price hovered around $1.8 million. He didn't see the expensive Garmin watch on Marcus's wrist. He didn't see the perfect form of a seasoned runner. He saw a suspect. Marcus turned the corner onto Willow Creek Drive, his breathing rhythmic and controlled. He was mentally reviewing a briefing on cybersecurity threats to the electrical grid that he would be presenting to the Undersecretary later that morning. His mind was on national security, not local harassment. Then the lights flickered against the pre-dawn mist. The chirp of a siren cut through the morning silence. Marcus slowed to a walk, pulled his earbuds out, and moved to the grass. He wasn't panicked. He was annoyed. He checked his watch, 6:12 a.m. This was going to make him late. He turned to face the cruiser. He kept his hands visible, palms open, resting near his waist. He knew the drill, he knew the statistics, and he knew the Constitution better than the man stepping out of the vehicle. Officer Braden adjusted his belt, hitching up his pants in a gesture that was meant to convey authority. He didn't touch his gun, but his hand hovered near it, resting on the flashlight holder. He walked with a swagger that masked his insecurity. "Morning," Braden said, though the tone wasn't a greeting, it was a challenge. "You live around here." Marcus stood perfectly still. He was 6'2", with the lean, hardened build of a man who took care of himself. "Good morning, officer. Is there a problem?" "Just asking a question, sir. You live around here?" "I do," Marcus replied calmly. "I'm on my morning run." "You don't have any ID on you, do you?" Braden asked, eyeing the tight running clothes. "I don't carry my wallet when I run, officer. It's bulky. I have my house key." Marcus gestured slightly to the small, zippered pocket on his vest. Braden stepped closer, invading Marcus's personal space. "Well, we've had some reports of break-ins in this area. Car hopping, porch pirates. You fit the description of a suspicious individual seen in the area." Marcus almost laughed. "The description was a black man in a neon yellow vest running at a 10-minute mile pace, or was the description just black male?" Braden's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to pushback. He was used to fear. "Listen, buddy, you need to lose the attitude. I need you to identify yourself. Before we go any further, I want you to stop and think. If you were stopped right outside your own home while exercising, how would you react? Would you be angry? Scared? Drop a comment below and tell me if you think this stop was justified so far. Because what happens next is going to make your blood boil." Marcus Thorne had spent the last decade analyzing high-level threats against the United States. He dealt with foreign operatives, domestic terrorists, and complex counterintelligence operations. He was a senior intelligence analyst for the Department of Homeland Security, holding a top-secret SAS-CI clearance. He knew exactly what was happening on this sidewalk. This wasn't an investigation. It was a fishing expedition. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming authoritative but calm, "I am not your buddy, and I am asking you a specific legal question. Are you detaining me, or am I free to go?" Braden blinked. He hated that question. It forced him to commit. "I'm conducting a Terry stop. I have reasonable suspicion that you may be involved in criminal activity based on the recent reports in this neighborhood. So yes, you are detained until I identify you. Reasonable suspicion requires specific articulable facts." Marcus recited the case law flowing from his memory as easily as his running cadence. Running in a neighborhood at 6:15 a.m. in athletic gear is not a crime. It is not suspicious behavior. Unless you can articulate a specific crime you believe I have committed, am committing, or am about to commit, this detention is unlawful under the Fourth Amendment. Braden's face flushed a deep crimson. The morning air was cool, but the officer was heating up. He felt his authority slipping away, challenged by a man who wasn't showing the proper amount of deference. "I don't need a law lecture from the sidewalk lawyers," Braden snapped. "I need a name and a date of birth, now, or you're going for a ride." Marcus weighed his options. He could refuse. Delaware v. Prowse and Hebel v. 6th Judicial District Court of Nevada were on his side, given the lack of reasonable suspicion. But he had a meeting at 9:00 a.m. He needed to de-escalate, even if the officer was intent on doing the opposite. "My name is Marcus Thorne. I reside at 4208 Willow Creek Drive, which is 3 blocks from where we are standing. If you follow me there, I can produce my driver's license and my federal credentials." Braden froze. He heard the word federal, but his brain filtered it out. He was too focused on the "follow me" part. He interpreted it as a command, and Officer Braden didn't take commands from suspects. "I'm not following you anywhere," Braden sneered. "And did you just say federal credentials? Who are you supposed to be, the FBI?" He chuckled a derogatory sound. "Let me guess you're a secret agent." "I am a senior analyst with the Department of Homeland Security," Marcus stated flatly, "and I am advising you for your own career to reconsider your current course of action." Braden stepped back and keyed his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a non-compliant subject at Willow Creek and Elm. Refusing to ID, claims he's a federal agent. Need a backup unit." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I gave you my name. I gave you my address. I am not refusing to ID. I am physically unable to produce a card I do not have on my person. I am currently detained unlawfully, and you are compounding a civil rights violation with a false arrest narrative." "Turn around," Braden commanded, his hand moving to his handcuffs. "For what?" Marcus asked, not moving. "Failure to identify, obstruction, and because I said so." "Those are not arrestable offenses in this context, officer. You are making a mistake that is going to cost the city a fortune." "We'll let the judge decide that," Braden said, reaching for Marcus's arm. Marcus didn't pull away, but he didn't help. He went rigid. He looked directly into the body camera lens on Braden's chest, his eyes cold and hard. "Officer, before you touch me, I need you to acknowledge that I have identified myself verbally and offered to provide physical proof at my residence 3 blocks away." "Turn around," Braden shouted, losing his composure entirely. The quiet suburban street wasn't quiet anymore. A light flicked on in the house nearest to them. A front door opened. The physical escalation of a police encounter is a terrifying thing to watch. It's the moment where logic completely exits the equation and raw power takes over. Officer Braden wasn't thinking about the law anymore. He was thinking about winning. He grabbed Marcus's left wrist and twisted it behind his back with unnecessary force. Marcus winced, a sharp pain shooting up his shoulder, but his training kicked in. Do not resist. Do not give him a reason to use the taser or the gun. Passive compliance. He allowed his arm to be manipulated, leaning forward slightly to alleviate the pressure on his joint. I am not resisting, Marcus said loud enough for the microphone to catch it clearly. I am complying with your physical force, though I state again this is an unlawful arrest. Stop tensing up, Braden yelled, shoving Marcus against the hood of the cruiser. The metal was cold and wet with dew. Marcus's cheek pressed against the slick surface. I am not tensing. I am standing still, Marcus replied, his voice muffled against the metal. You think you're smart. You think you can just talk your way out of this. Braden was breathing heavy, the adrenaline of the fight flooding his system. He pulled Marcus's other arm back. The ratchet of the handcuffs clicked once, twice. Tight, too tight. Officer, those cuffs are restricting circulation, Marcus stated. They're not supposed to be comfortable, Braden retorted. He patted Marcus down aggressively, his hands searching the runner's pockets. He found nothing but the house key and a packet of energy gel. No weapon, no contraband, no stolen goods, just a key and some glucose. You really think qualified immunity is going to save you on this one? Marcus asked from the hood of the car. Qualified immunity protects officials who violate rights that aren't clearly established. Arresting a man for jogging while black who has identified himself is a clearly established violation. The Fourth Circuit has been very specific about this. Braden hauled Marcus upright and spun him around. Shut up. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and disorderly conduct. Disorderly. Marcus looked around the empty street. I haven't raised my voice. You are the only one yelling, officer. You're disturbing the peace, Braden said, grasping for straws. Hey, what are you doing to him? The voice came from the driveway of the house they were parked in front of. Mrs. Eleanor Gable, a 72-year-old retired school principal, was standing there in her bathrobe holding her iPhone up horizontally. She was a neighborhood fixture known for her rose garden and her zero-tolerance policy for nonsense. Braden looked up, startled. Ma'am, go back inside. This is police business. I will not, Mrs. Gable announced, her voice projecting like she was addressing an unruly auditorium. I've been watching from the window for 5 minutes. That is Mr. Thorne. He lives in the blue Colonial on the corner. He runs every morning. What on earth are you doing to him? He's refusing to cooperate, ma'am, Braden said, trying to regain control of the narrative. He told you his name, Mrs. Gable shouted. I heard him. I'm recording this, officer, every bit of it. Marcus looked at Mrs. Gable and gave a small, reassuring nod. Thank you, Eleanor. Please don't stop recording. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus, she replied firmly. Braden knew he was in a bad spot. He had a witness, a camera, and a suspect who was calm, knowledgeable, and claiming to be a federal agent. A smarter officer would have de-escalated right then. He would have uncuffed Marcus, checked the ID at the house, and apologized. But Braden was too deep in his own ego. To release him now would be to admit he was wrong in front of the retired school teacher and the suspect. He opened the back door of the cruiser. Get in. I need you to double-lock these cuffs, Marcus said. They are tightening. Get in the car. Braden shoved Marcus's head down and pushed him into the back seat. The back of a police cruiser is designed to strip you of your dignity. It's a hard plastic shell, cramped and smelling of desperation. Marcus sat awkwardly, his hands pinned behind him, his shoulders aching. He closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself. He needed to be sharp for what was coming next. He began mentally cataloging everything. The time of arrest, 6:22 a.m. The officer's name tag, Braden, the car number 402, and the specific statements made. Braden got into the driver's seat. He was angry, his movements jerky as he put the car in gear. He ignored Mrs. Gable, who was still filming, as he pulled away from the curb. You're making a big mistake, Marcus said from the back, his voice calm and level. I have a briefing with the Undersecretary of Homeland Security at 0900 hours. If I miss that briefing because you are holding me on false charges, the phone call you receive isn't going to be from a lawyer. It's going to be from the district director." Braden laughed, but it sounded forced. Yeah, and I'm the director of the CIA. You guys always have a story. If you're a federal agent, why don't you have a badge?" "Because I'm jogging," Marcus said, as if explaining it to a child. "Do you run with your badge, officer?" Braden didn't answer. He turned up the radio, drowning out the silence. The drive to the precinct took 15 minutes. Marcus spent the time observing Braden. The officer was driving too fast, aggressive on the turns. He was agitated. He knew deep down that he might have stepped in it, but he was clinging to the hope that Marcus was lying. It was the only lifeline he had. If Marcus was just a guy lying about being a Fed to get out of a ticket, Braden was fine. If Marcus was telling the truth. Braden pushed the thought away. They arrived at the station, a modern brick building that looked more like a corporate office than a jail. Braden pulled into the sally port, the heavy garage door rumbling shut behind them, sealing Marcus in. Braden hauled Marcus out of the car. "Let's go. Processing." He marched Marcus through the heavy steel doors and into the booking area. It was a sterile room with bright fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, and a high counter where the intake sergeant sat. Sergeant Miller was a stark contrast to Braden. He was in his late 50s, balding with reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He had 30 years on the job and had seen everything. He looked up from his computer as Braden shoved Marcus toward the bench. Miller's eyes narrowed. He took in the scene a young, hot-headed officer bringing in a well-groomed, athletic black man in expensive running gear who looked completely unbothered. Miller had an instinct for bad arrests. He could smell them like ozone before a storm. "What do we have here, Braden?" Miller asked, his voice gravelly. "Obstruction, disorderly conduct, failure to ID." Braden rattled off. "Refused to provide identification during a Terry stop." Miller looked at Marcus. Marcus looked back, his expression neutral. "I identified myself verbally." "Sergeant," Marcus said, "I offered to walk 3 blocks to my home to produce my credentials. Officer Braden refused." Miller looked at Braden. "He offered to get ID. He was being belligerent," Braden lied. "He was trying to flee." "I was standing still," Marcus corrected. "Sergeant, my name is Marcus Thorne. I am a DHS senior intelligence analyst. I need you to run my name and social immediately. And I need you to call the watch commander." Braden rolled his eyes. "He keeps saying that, Sarge. He's full of it." Sergeant Miller didn't roll his eyes. He looked at Marcus's posture. He looked at the direct, unwavering eye contact, and he felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Uncuff him," Miller said quietly. "What? No, he's—" "I said uncuff him to the bench, Braden. Not completely. Just get the cuffs off his back." Miller pointed to the metal bar on the bench. Braden grumbled, but complied, transferring one cuff to the bench bar. Marcus rubbed his wrists. There were deep red indentations where the metal had dug in. "Name?" Miller asked, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Marcus Anthony Thorne," Marcus said. He rattled off his social security number and his date of birth with military precision. Miller typed it in. He hit enter. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The fan on the computer whirred. Then a red box popped up on the center of Miller's screen. It wasn't the usual warrant warning. It was a different kind of alert. A federal flag. Miller's face went pale. He leaned closer to the screen, reading the text that had just appeared. The text on the screen was sparse-coded and terrifying for a local police sergeant. Subject Thorne, Marcus A., Agency, DHS, Intelligence and Analysis, Clearance TSSCI, Level 5, Status Active, Alert Contact, DHS Liaison immediately upon contact. Do not detain without authorization from federal magistrate. Sergeant Miller stopped breathing for a second. He looked up at Marcus, then over at Officer Braden, who was leaning against the counter looking bored, checking his personal cell phone. Miller stood up slowly. "Braden." "Yeah, Sarge." "Get the keys." "For what?" "Get the keys and take those cuffs off him. Now." Miller's voice wasn't a request anymore. It was a low growl. Braden looked confused. "Sarge, I haven't even written the booking sheet yet. We need to—" "You are not writing a booking sheet," Miller snapped. "You are going to take the cuffs off Mr. Thorne, and then you are going to go sit in the break room and not speak to a single soul until I tell you to." "I don't understand," Braden stammered, his arrogance faltering. "Look at the screen, you idiot." Miller turned the monitor slightly. Braden squinted at the screen. He read the words, "Department of Homeland Security" and "Do not detain." The blood drained from his face so fast it looked like he might faint. "Oh," Braden whispered. "Uncuff him," Miller repeated. Braden fumbled with the keys. His hands were shaking. He unlocked the cuff from the bench, then the one on Marcus's wrist. Marcus stood up and rubbed his wrist again. He looked at Miller. "Thank you, Sergeant. I assume you're seeing the flag." "Yes, sir, I am," Miller said, his tone completely different now. "Mr. Thorne, I want to apologize. There seems to have been a severe misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Marcus said, his voice hard. "It was a violation of rights based on racial profiling and incompetence. Now I need my phone. It was in my pocket. Did you take it?" "It's in the bag," Braden mumbled, pointing to the plastic evidence bag on the counter. Marcus reached over, tore the bag open, and took his phone out. "I'm making a call. Do not interrupt me." He walked to the corner of the room. Miller didn't stop him. Braden just stood there looking like a ghost. Marcus dialed a number from memory. "Director?" "Yes, it's Thorne." "I'm going to be late." "No, I'm currently at the 4th Precinct. I've been arrested." "Yes, arrested. Officer Braden. Badge number 492. "No, I'm fine physically. But we have a situation." "Yes, send legal, and call the chief." He hung up and turned back to the officers. The door to the booking area flew open. Lieutenant Holloway, the watch commander, burst in. He was tucking his shirt in, clearly having just run from his office. "Miller, I just got a call from the assistant chief. Why is the DHS general counsel on the phone with the mayor?" Miller pointed at Marcus. "That's Mr. Thorne, sir." Holloway looked at Marcus, then at Braden, then at the red screen. He closed his eyes and exhaled a long, painful breath. He looked at Braden. "Did you arrest a DHS analyst for jogging?" He fit the description. He wouldn't ID." Braden's voice was barely a squeak. "Get out," Holloway said. "Sir, get out of my processing area. Go to my office. Sit in the chair. Don't touch anything. Don't call your union rep yet. Just sit there and pray." Braden walked out, his head hanging low. He looked smaller than he had 10 minutes ago. Much smaller. Holloway walked over to Marcus. He extended a hand, then realized how ridiculous that was given the circumstances and dropped it. "Mr. Thorne, I am Lieutenant Holloway. I am mortified. You are free to go immediately. Can I offer you a ride home, or to your office?" "I'm not going anywhere yet," Marcus said, leaning against the counter. "My agency is sending a legal liaison. We're going to document everything right here, right now. I want the Bodycam footage pulled and secured before it accidentally gets corrupted. I want the dash cam footage, and I want the name of the supervisor who was on duty and approved this transport." I can secure the footage," Holloway said. "Mr. Thorne, please, we can resolve this." "We will resolve this," Marcus agreed, "but not in the way you hope. I have spent my career protecting this country from threats. I don't appreciate being treated like one in my own neighborhood." The next hour was a master class in bureaucracy moving at light speed. Usually getting a police report takes days. Getting Bodycam footage takes months. But when the Department of Homeland Security is involved, things happen instantly. A black SUV pulled up to the precinct. A woman in a sharp navy suit stepped out. She was Sarah Jenkins, one of the top attorneys for DHS. She walked into the station carrying a briefcase and an aura of absolute destruction. She didn't smile. She didn't shake hands. She walked straight to Marcus. "You okay, Marcus?" "I'm fine, Sarah. Wrists are a bit sore. I want it documented." "Done." She turned to Lieutenant Holloway. "I am Sarah Jenkins' office of the General Counsel DHS. I need a private room for my client to debrief. I need the chain of custody logs for the body camera footage, and I need the booking report, which I assume you were wise enough not to officially file." We voided the arrest, ma'am," Holloway stammered. "It's a detention only, released without charges." "Oh, there will be charges," Sarah said icily. "Just not against him." While Sarah handled the paperwork, Marcus sat in the captain's office. The captain had arrived 10 minutes ago, breathless and terrified. "Mr. Thorne," Captain Reynolds said, "I have reviewed the footage. It is indefensible. Officer Braden's conduct does not reflect the values of this department." "With all due respect, Captain," Marcus said, looking at a photo of the police force on the wall. "Officer Braden has been on your force for 4 years. I looked up his stats while I was waiting. He has 18 use-of-force complaints, 0 sustained. He stops black motorists at 4 times the rate of his peers. His conduct reflects exactly the values of this department because this department has allowed him to operate this way for years." The captain was silent. There was no rebuttal. "The only reason I am sitting here in a chair instead of a cell is because I have a clearance level higher than yours," Marcus continued. "If I were a school teacher, or a construction worker, or just a guy working at the grocery store, I'd be in a cage right now charged with obstruction. Braden would be high-fiving his buddies. That is the problem." "We are going to handle it," Reynolds promised. "I know you are," Marcus said, "because I'm going to make sure of it." Just then the door opened. Sarah stepped in. "We have the footage secured. The DOJ Civil Rights Division has already been notified as a courtesy. We can go, Marcus." Marcus stood up. He walked out of the office past the front desk. He saw Officer Braden sitting in the lieutenant's glass-walled office, head in his hands. Braden looked up as Marcus walked by. Their eyes met. Marcus didn't sneer. He didn't gloat. He just looked at him with a profound disappointment. As they walked out to the SUV, Mrs. Gable was still standing on the sidewalk outside the station. She had driven herself down there. "Marcus," she waved. Marcus smiled for the first time that morning. He walked over to her. "Eleanor, you shouldn't be here." "I wanted to make sure they didn't hurt you," she said, clutching her phone. "I sent the video to your wife, and to my nephew." "Who's your nephew?" Marcus asked. "He's a producer at CNN," Eleanor said with a sweet smile. Marcus laughed, a genuine hearty laugh. "Eleanor, you are a national treasure." The fallout was immediate, nuclear, and public. By noon, the video Mrs. Gable had recorded was trending on Twitter. By 2:00 p.m., the body camera footage released by the department, in a desperate attempt to get ahead of the narrative, confirmed everything Eleanor's video showed, plus the damning audio of Braden's arrogance. Officer Braden was suspended without pay at 3:00 p.m. Marcus Thorne didn't go to work that day. He went to a doctor to document the bruising on his wrists and the strain in his shoulder. Then he went home, showered, and sat on his porch. The lawsuit was filed 3 weeks later. It wasn't just about the stop, it was about the pattern. Marcus's lawyers, working pro bono because the case was so strong, tore into the department's records. They found that Braden wasn't an anomaly. He was a symptom. They found emails where supervisors joked about Braden's hunting habits. They found a culture of silence that protected bad cops until they messed with the wrong person. The settlement negotiations were short. The city attorney took one look at the deposition of Officer Braden, where he admitted he couldn't articulate a single crime Marcus was suspected of committing, and told the city council to pay up. "If we go to trial," the attorney told the council, "Mr. Thorne will take the stand. He is a federal intelligence analyst. He is articulate, credible, and sympathetic. And Officer Braden comes off as a bully. The jury will give him millions." They settled for $850,000. But for Marcus, the money was secondary. He insisted on non-monetary terms. The settlement required the department to implement a strict policy on Terry stops, requiring officers to radio in the specific reasonable suspicion before initiating a stop. It required mandatory de-escalation training, and most importantly, it required the termination of Officer Braden. Braden was fired 5 months after the incident. He tried to fight it through the union, but the public pressure was too immense. The video had been viewed 20 million times. He was toxic. Marcus donated the entire $850,000 to the Innocence Project and a local legal defense fund for indigent defendants. "I don't need their money," Marcus told a reporter in his only interview. "I need them to understand that the Constitution applies before 900 a.m., and it applies to black men in running shoes just as much as it applies to anyone else." Life eventually returned to normal on Willow Creek Drive, but it was a new kind of normal. Officer Braden moved to a different state. He applied to a few police departments, but a simple Google search of his name brought up the video. He never wore a badge again. He ended up working in logistics for a trucking company, a job where he had no authority over anyone. Marcus continued to run. Every morning at 600 a.m., he laced up his shoes. But things were different. When police cruisers passed him now, they slowed down not to harass him, but to wave. It was a gesture of respect, perhaps, or maybe fear. Marcus didn't care which as long as they kept moving. 1 year later, Marcus was invited to speak at the police academy. It was part of the reform package. He stood on the stage looking out at a sea of fresh-faced recruits, men and women in their early 20s eager to serve. He played the video of his arrest. He watched them wince as Braden twisted his arm. He watched them shift uncomfortably as Braden mocked him. "This officer," Marcus said, pointing to the screen where Braden was shouting, "thought power was about dominance. He thought authority meant he didn't have to listen. He lost his career, his reputation, and his pension because he forgot who he works for." Marcus scanned the room. "You are going to be given a gun and a badge. You are going to be given power over your fellow citizens. If you think that makes you better than them, turn in your gear and leave now. Because the next person you stop might be a criminal, or they might be a federal agent. But it shouldn't matter. The law protects them both. If you can't respect that, you don't belong here." The room was silent. Marcus walked off the stage. He drove home changed into his running gear and hit the pavement. The sun was setting this time, casting long shadows across the neighborhood. He ran past Mrs. Gable's house. She was in her garden. She waved. He waved back. He thought about the what-ifs. What if he hadn't been DHS? What if he had been a young man with no connections? What if he had panicked? He knew the answer. He would have a criminal record. He would have lost his job. He might have been hurt or killed. That reality weighed on him heavier than any vest. He wasn't just running for exercise anymore. He was running because he could. He was running for everyone who couldn't. Freedom is a fragile thing. It can be taken away in seconds by someone who decides you don't look like you belong. Marcus Thorne's story is a victory, but it's also a warning. It reminds us that rights are like muscles. If you don't exercise them, if you don't defend them, they atrophy. Why do you think it took a federal security clearance to get the police to listen? Do you think justice would have been served if Marcus was just a regular civilian? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and if you believe in holding power accountable, please hit that subscribe button. We need to keep telling these stories so that one day we won't have to.